Yep, let's get started. I'm Gayle Peterson, Associate Fellow Director of Oxford Impact Investing Program. Welcome to our conversation today about AI and the future of impact finance. And this is the beginning of a series, a seminar series. It may take the form of a webinar, podcast, masterclass. We want to welcome you to our community. Many of you have been part of our community, alums of our programs, but also new colleagues. And you're going to get a taste of how we approach impact investing. The speakers today are friends, colleagues, alums, faculty, um, and how we approach our impact investing class is just that. We are a community. How do we engage in difficult conversation, in provocation? And how do we move to a place of consensus, collaboration, and thought? So this idea, again, of welcome the promise and peril of AI and what's at stake. We think about this visual images. We're going to explore what those provocations are. Human side of technology, computer side of technology, how key influences, how they both influence how we use capital for common good. When we think about impact finance, our definition is broad. We think about it in the context of all capital that can create social, environmental, and financial change, positive change. So it's across that spectrum of deploying capital and how we blend that and deploy it in a creative way that creates positive social, environmental, financial impact and return. And what's the role of technology and AI to actually achieve that? We think about what's the buzz? The buzz is big bucks. Where's the money being spent in the billions and the trillions? How much did Elon Musk is going to get this year? 1 trillion. So we think about following the money. Artificial intelligence. The United States still is spending the most in terms of AI and technology. But you can see the global map of it is a game changer financially and socially. In terms of AI patents, this will give you a sense of where we are. China, again, is driving patents and global innovation, as well as other countries. AI we trust, that's a big issue that we're going to discuss. Do we trust AI and technology? If you're in India, absolutely, 75% of colleagues believe in respondents believe in trust in AI. You can see down to Israel 34, Germany 35. So how we build trust with technology is critically important as we examine how it influences impact finance. The balance between innovation and risk is still undecided, right? There are countries that are investing, but are not fully prepared to address the policy ramifications or financial implications of AI. These are the kinds of issues we'll explore in class. One of the other things we don't shy away from are the AI concerns. When we think about the environmental impact of AI, it's enormous. In terms of CO2 emissions, in terms of use of water. So how we think about the innovation and the opportunities in the context of the challenges that we face. The environmental impact of generative AI. I love the piece of the first, just 20 to 50%, 50 questions answered with ChatGPT is a half a liter of fresh water. How do we, in fact, use and value our resources when we move forward, our natural resources in the context of AI? And how do we balance nature-based solutions with the needs and the opportunity for technology? Data centers are, again, we are learning our water sinks and pushback by community. So this is the map of where AI data center regions are located. And we're going to explore in impact investing, really, what are those challenges? How do you get community buy-in? What are the opportunities? One of our dear colleagues and alums, Dawson Her Many Horses, who will really help us explore AI, technology, indigenous communities, and what are the opportunities for empowerment and also the challenges that indigenous community face around the world when technologies enter into the equation. In terms of mining, we're also going to explore nature-based solution. We're talking about a lot about precious metal mining, rare minerals for our EVs and for cell phones and for technology. We're going to also explore the upside and downside of that. Oh, deep sea ocean mining, what that means for implications for the environment, for fisheries. The consequences around the supply chain are issues that we're going to discuss. When we think about the future is uncertain, the provocation, this is actually an AI generated image. Stephen Hawking, the full development of artificial intelligence could spell the destruction of the human race. So we will explore what that means in terms of the balance and the challenge. Another Oxford colleague, Sir Ronald Cohen, the future is bright. AI can drive impact. It can align moral, social, environmental incentives. So it's the yin and the yang, and we're going to explore all of that in terms of where capital is used, where technology is used, how people's lives are changed, and what our leadership role is in the context of moral, social, and environmental initiatives. One of the things I've been researching over the past year is what are the key cornerstone elements that we must have when we're examining technology. So one is looking at 80 years ago, we created the nuclear bomb. And the implication of that, Nobel laureates met at the University of Chicago this summer to really talk about what it means to incorporate humanity or humans first in any decision making when it comes to technology. How can impact investing shape AI and humanity? That's a major theme throughout our course. How can we help influence AI to incorporate compassion, empathy, candor, create jobs and opportunities for all? So, not steering away from the challenges that we face, but how do we challenge ourselves to include humanity in everything that we do and make that a priority when we're integrating technology into our work and into our capital? We have your questions that we're going to address. We've got 30. So those, there will be more. We'll have 3,000 questions if you, especially if you've got your ChatGPT operating and manipulating these questions and listening to our conversation. Put those in the question answers, and we're going to get to as many of these as possible. Our faculty and our colleagues have already identified several we're going to answer. If we don't get to them all, again, this is a series, and we'll try to follow up with you. But let's keep the conversation going. One of the issues that we're facing in terms of complexity is alternative facts and technology. And COP30, there's a drive right now to expand forestry, forest protection, and our forests and climate, our world is under attack. So how do we use technology to address the challenges we face without being wrapped in politics and political divisiveness and misinformation? So we're going to address the concept and the challenge of misinformation. The World Economic Forum looks at wicked problems, the challenges that we face. That's number one issue, misinformation facing our world and executives in the space. So how do we as a team and as a community address those issues and make them relevant to impact finance? We use a systems approach in everything we do, whether it's investment strategy or technology. Ask the question, does it have negative, positive, or neutral or unknown backlash or outcomes on personal security, economic security, community security, environment, education, food, politics, health? How do we see that system in the context of technology? And we always put a person and community at the center of our decision making and work our way out. Technology is the same approach, whether it's investment financially or investment in the technology itself. So those are some of the things we're going to examine. In addition, we work across what we call the plumbing, the ecosystem of investment, from individual investors, advisors, market-facing intermediaries, market-facing, community-facing intermediaries, and the communities themselves. This is the ecosystem in which we operate: public, private, philanthropic sector resources, and how do we deploy them? So that's enough for me. What I do want to do is turn it over to our colleagues and our presenters, our fellow provocateurs. Peter Hinton is an associate fellow, dear friend, has been with a core faculty member for, seems like 50 years, doesn't it, Peter? But it's only been a decade, right? Dale has been a dear friend and colleague, was with in our social finance program. Phyllis, Costanza, we met when we did a case series on your work in Educate Girls and Development Impact Bonds. And so that's been almost a 10-year journey together. So I'm going to let my colleagues really take it from here, talk about their own perspectives of what the positive things, what you learn in class, and the opportunities that we face. I'm going to begin with Dale, then turn it to Peter, and then on to Phyllis. So with that, I want to thank you. Send your questions in, and we'll get started.
Great. Thank you, Gayle. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be in the world. I'm Dale Sear with Inteleos. We're a nonprofit healthcare organization. And I was asked to be to provoke some questions this morning. And so I will be doing that. I'll be asking a couple questions and taking a step back from the outline that Gayle did, but really to focus on how you should interact with AI as an individual, strategically, and within your organization. I do think it's very important to take a step back to see how one or your organization should engage with AI and ask a couple basic questions as you move forward. AI is new, and so for the next few minutes, these questions will occur. Um, I want you to think about these questions about yourself, about your work, and your organizations, and what impact, I guess, pun intended there, what impact that may have as you move forward. The thing to remember about AI is that it's really only about well, AI has been around a long time, but the implementation's really been about 2 years. And so, in a very short amount of time, the world's knowledge has been collapsed into AI data centers, namely through large language models and other models. And so how are we going to, what impact does that have? And so I'm going to share my slide here. And really the main question is that since the world's knowledge is literally a prompt away from us, and we can have active interactions with the world's knowledge, Mustafa Suleyman, who's the CEO of Microsoft AI, has had this concept out for a while, is that as this is going on, the marginal cost of expertise is going to zero. And if we take a step back and think about that, that has huge impacts of expertise around the world, whether it be in impact finance, whether it be in law, medicine, accounting, consulting, is that how will humans interact with this technology, and where in fact, what role does expertise play in the future, especially with human interactions? And that we have to maybe take a step back and look of how do we reimagine the work that we do, and the systems that we interact with, the ecosystems that we share around the world, and the networks we have to actually add value and maybe increase the scale of the purpose and the human potential we have. So this is really the main question to think about as we engage over the courses as we move along. The real key, another question to think about, is that as humans interacting with this type of knowledge, especially in impact finance, and we have to maybe rethink about the systems in which we engage with, is that AI is providing us intelligence that never stops learning. Always remember that AI systems themselves, through LLMs and other algorithms, whether it be agents or main LLMs, is that it's learning from you, it's learning from the world's knowledge and within the ecosystems that you are engaged with. And so how does one engage and become successful with AI and thinking about how impact finance systems may change in the future looking forward? And it really does come down, as Gail pointed out, really a concept to remember. It's really about human first. I firmly believe that it has to be human first and human in the loop as you engage in these systems. And it really comes about having the psychological safety of yourself and your teams and your networks, in which people need to feel comfortable about engaging with AI, asking each other questions, and in asking questions of AI to enhance your effectiveness, your efficiencies, how to build new systems. Is there faster ways you can come up with funding models, new funding models? What ecosystem should you engage with around the world that may enhance your purpose and impact for outcomes? That's very, very important. That's a culture issue. And I think that's really what I'm getting at is that as you look at these at the AI systems in which expertise costs are coming down to zero, is that you have to feel comfortable engaging and you have to have colleagues that are comfortable in asking questions. And it really centers around being comfortable with experimentation. And a lot of these um, professions and these systems are not used to experimenting. It's true in the IT world, that's very true, but in law, in medicine, impact finance, accounting, experimentation is really not part of the culture. You have to become comfortable with experimentation. You have to engage with AI, knowing you're going to make mistakes, learn from it, and expand your knowledge and culture with AI as a partner. I look at AI as that all of us, as we engage with AI, we should look at it as having a cognitive partner so we can expand our knowledges with and around this. Because it's important for all of us to have AI fluency. And as we build our value systems through our ecosystems around the world, to engage partners around the world, even in LMICs around the world, we need to have those accesses to AI and the knowledge that we're going to be getting, which really comes down to, as leaders within impact finance, how do we build leadership skills that can actually manage a hybrid system, whether it be within your organization or an ecosystem? Those are very unique skills that are still being developed today. I have no answers for that other than through experience of what I am learning through my organization is that how do we master human and technological staffing and or systems to move forward for our purpose and mission. So really, for my provocative question, it is if expertise costs are becoming zero, what value do we have as impact investors or in any profession around the world within your ecosystems? Because what we really need to think about is how do we orchestrate intelligence? And how do we orchestrate that intelligence as a cognitive partner to look at new ways of doing the work that we have done for many years, maybe, in ecosystems around the world? It's one thing to be efficient and effective with AI. It's another thing just to bolt on AI to inefficient systems. AI is great at automating, but why would we want to automate systems that maybe need improvement or that are inefficient? And this is where I think the human capability of judgment, which I think will become much more prevalent as we move forward, is that with judgment, how in fact do we leverage this technology to improve systems for better impact and purpose for the reasons that we need to have impact financing around the world or whatever the profession may be. So I leave you with these questions in those areas. And a couple ideas on this within impact financing is that, as you build your skill sets and fluency with AI, is it more effective for finding and developing the right funding models, discovering new partners and ecosystems for your purpose and mission around the world? AI alone is not the answer. It is absolutely essential that humans are in the loop. Humans have judgment. AI systems do not. And it'll be a long time before it does. But AI systems are getting better every day. And another concept to think about is that today is the worst day AI will ever be. And so as you grow with AI and you interact with AI, your growth with your cognitive partner should provide you new answers and new insights to some of the work that you do. So adopt machine intelligence to help you, your organization, and your network ecosystems to achieve the outcomes you wish, and maybe reinvent some things along the way. But basically, keep asking yourself, if the cost of expertise is going to zero, what value and what role will I play? Not can, but will I play in your systems for impact finance in other areas that you may be in? And from
Thanks.
there, I'll stop.
Perfect. Thanks, Dale. I appreciate it. Peter, you're up.
You bet.
Okay, good day, everybody. Can you see that slide? Is that clear? Yeah, thank you. Okay, thank you, Dale. I'd like to follow on from what both Gayle and Dale said in terms of humans being at the center
Hey,
of,
Peter, would you do the slideshow? Put it on slideshow.
yeah, okay,
Thank you.
from the beginning. How does that look? Look better? So, looking at AI and impact finance, I want to particularly focus on education and what's happening in the education space in Africa using AI and technology. Because at the end of the day, if humans are key to how we use AI and how we as impact investors work with AI, we have to equip people, particularly in developing countries, but to actually use AI intelligently. And a key part of this is how the education system works in a developing country context. So I want to give you some examples of how people are using AI and technology to further education from an impact investment perspective, but also in terms of some of the questions that people asked ahead of this webinar, what we see happening and whether it's improving things or not. And some of the challenges that Gayle touched on are already recognized a digital divide between developing countries and developed countries, particularly the rich north. And the map that Gayle put on the screen showed where a lot of the data centers are. There was only one data center of note in Africa, and that was in South Africa. So what we are cognizant of and I am concerned about is that digital divide doesn't increase, but actually gets narrower. And can AI play a role in that is the question. So a key part of that is equipping people in Africa to have, as Dale was saying, the skills of judgment to be able to use AI correctly, to actually be problem solvers, to be critical thinkers, to be able to work together and form partnerships and relationships, particularly where we're trying to use finance for purpose. So I want to look at some of the examples of technology and AI being used in the education space in Africa. So which highlights the importance of AI alongside human involvement and human interaction. So in South Africa, Singakwenza is a very interesting, I put the details up there for you to have a look at, is involved in early childhood development. And it trains people in early childhood development centers in how to take waste products, waste, and make it into play-based learning tools. They clearly measure, and I show on the next slide here, the baseline of where they get involved and what happens there, and the end line of where things get to. So, for example, if you look at the bottom left-hand corner, emergent literacy and language. When they started working in these early childhood development centers, over 100 in KwaZulu-Natal, they did a baseline. And you can see from the red, a significant percentage of children are falling far behind, and the orange is falling behind as well. So only 20% at the beginning were actually on track in emergent literacy and language. Whereas after a year of being involved in these ECD centers, it had gone up to 60%. You can see the same improvement elsewhere. But so they're using data to actually inform what they're doing and measure what they're doing. That's where the impact side is important. But critically, coaches are working with these schools and these practitioners to actually embed the learning and improve the pedagogy in those schools. So I think that's a good idea, a good example of technology working hand in hand with human intervention to actually equip humans to actually teach children, very young children, the basics that they need in life. And the reality, whether we like it or not, is human beings learn from human beings. Teachers learn from teachers. Children learn from adults and from other children. You can use screens, you can use AI and technology, but you have to equip those children and young people and teachers with the skills that they need to do the best they can with their capabilities. Gayle talked about intermediaries. And so the Kenya example here is called Jackfruit. We've talked with Jackfruit on impact investing. They're a financial intermediary trying to use fintech to get finance into low-cost schools in Africa. And alongside that, building the capability of those schools in terms of financial management and in terms of what takes place in the classroom. So they're trying to combine human involvement, but using technology. And they use the data from the performance of loans, and they use AI to actually track what the risk management of lending to these small and medium-sized enterprises. They're already financing about 700 schools in Kenya. They've just expanded into Uganda. And so it's an example of a financial intermediary stepping into the space where banks are not interested to reach small and medium-sized enterprises in low-income areas. So AI is playing a role in making them more efficient, more capable at reaching those disparate groups, and also bringing the cost of finance down so it becomes more competitive. I put here in terms of Nigeria and Kenya, a colleague of mine at Oxford, David Johnson, has developed an app called Oxtrack. This is one of the university's spin-outs. And what it is an app which establishes and assesses pedagogical knowledge of teachers. He's piloting this at the moment in Kenya with 1,000 teachers and in Nigeria with 30,000 teachers. And the idea being, per the slide that I've got here, is it tests various areas of pedagogical knowledge that a teacher should have. In terms of those 4 areas, knowledge of learners and learning, etc. And then over a year, measures quarterly the growth in knowledge and understanding that these teachers have. And the idea being that a level 1 teacher should be able to improve to a level 4 teacher. A level 4 teacher, per this app, is a competent pedagogical teacher. And so he's using AI to say, okay, when you fall below what's the minimum requirement of knowledge of, say, level 1, AI will then push the teacher and show them where there's content and app kind of YouTube videos of classroom practice and other content which they can study in their own time to actually improve their pedagogical knowledge. And then they can retake that test if they didn't get over 60% in 3 months' time, and hopefully improve and get over that 60% to move on to level 2. So it's a step-by-step approach to get them from wherever they are to improve their pedagogical knowledge. But what's important is alongside that AI-enhanced technology and learning of the teachers is coaching and mentoring. You have that human intervention alongside the technology so that these teachers not only get the feedback to improve what they're doing, but also have somebody humanly they can talk to actually help them along that journey. So in a learning context, the human element is a key component going alongside the AI. Another outfit called Perivoli is working in 6 countries in Southern Africa. They're using iPads and the equivalent tablets to go around low-income nursery schools and training teachers and working with teachers to actually improve their pedagogy and knowledge. Because going back to the original point, if we want people to be skillful in an AI world, they have to be confident, they have to be problem solvers, they have to be critical thinkers, and they need to be work with other people. If you don't start in the first 5 years of a child's life, those children are often held back throughout their lives. So it's critical that we actually get investment into young people as early as we can. And what Perivoli do is they collect the data from the training that they're doing, a face-to-face training, but using that technology on the tablets to actually train nursery teachers. They've done it already over, well, several thousand, and they're expanding and want to reach 500,000 in the next 5 years. But the idea being that they're using technology and the data from that, and that feeds into improved content and quality. Two more things to mention in this area is Gates have been funding a tech and AI kind of research center stroke networking website. You can see they're called benchmarks, called AI for Education. And what this entity is been going for a few years is trying to establish and it make sure that that digital divide I mentioned earlier doesn't get worse. So they're trying to collect what initiatives are taking place around the world and trying to share that so people can know what's happening and learn from each other and build on those initiatives. The last thing to mention here is in Rwanda, we've taught Save the Children on impact investing and social finance. They've started using finance to invest in childcare, early childhood development, which is the area of focus that this presentation is about, to actually get money into edupreneurs. So these are often women-run enterprises that want to expand and grow, but they're combining the finance with training of these women enterprises in terms of business skills and also the teachers so they can actually spin off and start their own early childhood development centers. Because in Rwanda, the government have done a census, an estimated 19% of children have access to affordable early childhood development, and they would like it to be 80%. But the government hasn't got the finance, as in most countries in Africa, to meet that need. So can they work with the private sector, providing affordable quality childcare and ECD? So Save the Children are pioneering this and piloting it with a view of scaling it up to a model with evidence using AI and data to show that it works, learn from what doesn't work and improve that, but then replicate that in the 20 other countries around Africa where they're working. So I've mentioned the Oxtrack, I've mentioned Singakwenza. So in summary, when it comes to AI finance and the education sector, if we're going to have if we're going to have populations which are problem solving and creative and have the right skills and can make these judgments, as Dale was saying, we have to have affordable childcare and ECD. We need that. We need to use AI, we need to use technology, and we need to use impact finance to get there. But there's a big job to be done in terms of quality improvement of the existing provision and improving access to affordable ECD and childcare, as we see in Rwanda and throughout South Africa. And so can AI play a role in that? Can tech play a role in that? Can humans play a role in that? And hopefully those examples I've given you show that where human involvement comes alongside technology and AI, you can have a powerful combination. With Oxtrack, if those pilots prove successful and improve the app that David Johnson has developed, the idea being that can be used in government schools, in non-government schools, throughout childcare, ECD, primary, secondary, to improve the quality of education delivery throughout Africa. That would be a highly impactful use of impact finance and technology and AI.
Thank you, Peter.
Can I just have 2 minutes to finish here? Because
Absolutely, absolutely, Peter, because we know we always
I like stealing
time.
I like stealing time. But the reason why that's relevant is it can lead to vocational training of teachers, particularly unqualified teachers, to get something which is recognized by government. And it also hopefully brings government into partnership with this non-state sector of childcare and ECD to actually play a role. And that's happened in South Africa, where the government will now give to qualifying early childhood development centres a per capita grant of up to 40% of the cost of educating children. There are significant societal benefits if we get all this right. So bringing in Oxtrack along with the childcare people like Singakwenza, we Save the Children initiatives to actually use AI to have more women entrepreneurs, job creations, skilled young people, and sustainable financing, so that we can actually use AI which benefits people, profit, and planet. Because in the field of learning, we need these tools, but we also need humans who can use those tools. So I hope that gives you a feel for how AI is starting. And it's only starting, is a recent development. As Dale was saying, it's in the last 2 years that we've actually seen the implementation. So we're still learning what works. But I think what the key message is, AI by itself is not sufficient. In the area of education and systems change, where you've got government working alongside civil society with finance and other people, you actually have to have humans at the center and work alongside and use these tools, but not lose sight of the fact that you're talking about human beings and their skills and potential to contribute towards impact. Thank you very
Well,
much.
well done, Peter. Well done. And again, I think the link that we make in class and is law, policy, finance, knitting together those elements are what we talk about and bring to class. Phyllis, over to you. Thank you so much, Peter.
Great. Well, thank you. And I'm going to talk about how AI is used from the investor's perspective and share with you an example of what's now possible using AI that wasn't before. For decades, philanthropies funded movements, shifted culture, and fought for dignity and opportunity. But in the public markets, they've largely been blind to these forces, especially the social dimension. So if you think about ESG, the S in there has not been studied. Think back, or at least not fully. Think back to 2020 in the wake of George Floyd's murder. Companies that stayed silent on racial justice lost consumer trust and market value. And in that moment, speaking up was a strategic advantage. Fast forward to today, a single statement on DEI can trigger boycotts, backlash, and billions in volatility. So the ground is shifting again. Same issue, different moment, opposite market reaction. And that's the reality of social factors. They move fast, they move markets, but the tools that investors have used to measure the S are outdated, they've been static and really incomplete. So with AI for the first time, we can finally quantify trust, workforce culture, community relationships, ethical behavior, the things philanthropies understood for years, but Wall Street couldn't measure. And this is the moment when values, data, and capital align. So I'm with Advanced Portfolio Management. We built a system to quantify social performance in public companies and turn that into investable intelligence so that this can reward companies that do right by their workers, by their communities, by their customers with competitive financial outcomes. So what has been the problem to date? To date, the challenge around social factors has been myriad. Environmental and government frameworks are decades ahead. They're highly quantifiable, but the social dimension has been the missing piece because the social signals are very messy, they're unstructured, they're cultural, and they're fast moving, as you heard from the George Floyd example. Yet today's economy is human capital driven: culture, workforce, trust, and ethics. So the four core problems that have made social investing hard is the data is sparse. Companies haven't reported consistently. You've got the zeitgeist risk. What's socially good shifts quickly. This information is unstructured. So news and transcripts and cultural signals are really hard to quantify. And you've got factor drift. So most social funds accidentally tilt towards other risks. And the market kept trying to use ENG tools to measure the social factors, but it doesn't work. So our work has been designed to fill this gap. And what we have done to address this is we have built a methodology from first principles, tabula rasa, and we only included factors that are socially material and financially material. So the result has been a pure play on the social dimensions. We've got comprehensive coverage because we're using myriad sources from corporate disclosures, regulatory data, media, reporting, real-time signals. It's powered by large language models. So AI can read what humans can't read. You've got millions of narratives at once that it would take thousands and thousands of human beings to parse through. There's dynamic weighting, which I'll explain more about shortly, because what matters today, again, the George Floyd example, or look at, what happened with Bud Light. So what matters today might not matter tomorrow. And all scoring is driven by this social framework. There's no style bias. So this is rigor plus technology plus values aligned with performance. And this next slide has a lot of words on it, so I'm going to go over it very quickly. The bottom line here is that, as I mentioned, we built this from the ground up. We started with about 1,500 metrics from 20 different sources. We went through them. We ultimately got to a point where we've got 4 issue areas, 102 metrics, and 14 indicators. And I'm going to show you what that means in real life. So the issue areas we're looking at are community impact. So how does a company impact its community? How do they work with their employees? What is the management like? And product responsibility. So their consumers, how are they treating their consumers? So basically, it says, how does the company treat its people? And we can look here, one of the indicators, there are 14 indicators for all of these 4 issue areas. If we've got diversity and inclusion, you could see here on the right how it's measuring that. Describe how the firm trains its employees with emerging technology. Just make sure I'm in the right one. No, sorry. There we go. Diversity includes. Describe the organization's stated strategies, goals, and targets for supporting racial and ethnic or women's equality, et cetera. So each of these has metrics underneath it. If you go to product responsibility, you can see the metrics listed there under management and under community impact. And it's able to deal, you could see if it's qualitative or quantitative data. If it's quantitative data, it's fairly easy. If it's qualitative, we built a methodology to enable AI to score the qualitative information. Let me give you an example of one company. So if we look here, this is Apple. Okay, we look at community impact for Apple. Their overall score for community impact out of 100 is 77.3. And you could see where it scores on each of those metrics. Similarly, if we look at fair labor practices, their score is 63.9. And you could see, you could click into each of these metrics to see how well they're performing, and the scores underneath that. This is the issue that has made this so complicated. I really want to underscore how dynamic this is. So if you see here, you could see industries here on the right. You could see the scores here on the left. And at the bottom, we're looking at data on a quarterly basis. So the real estate industry, is here, it's moving rapidly. So some of these industries, they score really high for one quarter, but then they drop down for the next quarter because social factors are so dynamic that you really have to track this information on a very rapid basis. So bottom line here is that when you look at social factors, no surprise, companies that treat people well far outperform by several hundred basis points those that don't when we compare it to the methodology that we've developed when we compare that to the S&P 500. Last slide is we have drafted a white paper for those of you who are interested in reading it. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Phyllis. I think that's great. I think that the question is, again, the volatility of the market, the politics driving the use of technology, politics driving new ways of investing, whether it's DEI, whether it's climate. How do you ride the wave of that volatility, and how does your technology keep pace with that? In fact, that volatility. And those are some of the issues that we'll be examining in the course. How do we, in fact, address climate change when there's pushback in terms of COP? China, the United States, India did not send major representatives to COP. So what does that mean for how do we finance climate as well as social intervention? One of the things that we're going to be talking about in class is in Japan, for example, we'll be doing a feature on our work in Japan, is really we're moving tech entrepreneurs to rural communities. What does that mean in terms of acceptance of culturally, financially? How do you build support systems? So that tracking at a community level, as well as what big corporations are doing in the context of riding the wave of politics and blending technology is really important. So fantastic insights. And let's field some of those questions. We've got 30 plus questions, and I know that the chat has been very active. Phyllis, do you want to address the 4 questions that you identified that you thought were useful?
Sure, sure. So one of the questions was about AI and the evolution of impact management measurement, and that is changing rapidly. There's a startup I know well called Nixion. It's helping nonprofits using AI to identify the indicators and basically comes up with a really inexpensive way for nonprofits to track measurement. But I think what's really interesting is that as AI transforms investing, impact measurement is moving from basically, brochure metrics, what people are reporting, to neighborhood realities and community reality. So it's continuous, it can be place-based, and really grounded in the voices of the people we're serving. So for example, AI lets us see impact at a community level. We can look at things like commute time, school attendance, health access, not just at a corporate or a national level. We can also get real-time feedback, which is really important for social information because, as I showed you, it changes very rapidly. We were also asked about blending infrastructure capital with impact capital, and that's also a critical point. First loss money is really powerful, but it's not charity for bad deals. It's a precision tool to crowd in serious capital to well-governed urban systems, or whatever you're investing in. So, for example, if you're investing in urban infrastructure, it can help de-risk projects and attract institutional investors. And using AI, it could be easier to track the impact of these projects, and people could see in a real-time basis how those projects are doing, particularly for large infrastructure projects. Mm-hmm. And then we were also asked about use cases in AI and social impact. And there's a lot of tremendous promise here. It's not just these shiny pilots, but it's making rigorous targeting and honest feedback loops cheap enough to be the norm. So, for example, it can really specify targeting. I'm on the board of Educate Girls, and we use AI to identify the communities, the villages, the neighborhoods that are most likely to have out-of-school girls. And also it enhances accountability. So using natural language processing, scanning of beneficiary feedback and news reports can help detect failures early on. And then finally, trying to move quickly through these, there was a question about the compliance risk of using AI in finance. And to be clear, the compliance risk isn't that we're using AI. It's that sometimes we use it like a toy. And the fiduciary duty remains human. We cannot outsource our accountability to a model. And there's an EU AI Act, which states that basically most financial AI systems have to require full documentation, testing, and human oversight. So we will not be able to fully outsource our compliance to AI. I hope I answered those 4 questions quickly enough. Thanks.
No, well done. Tennille, any other questions that are popping up that we should be addressing?
I think we've had most of them answered in the Q&A. So other than the ones that were sent in, we've kind of answered them live.
Okay, Dale, you had some thoughts on answering some of those questions. You're on mute. There you go.
Yeah, of course. There we go. Yeah, the question I'll address is, what are the best 2 to 3 questions a board trustee can ask to ensure a charity is making the most of AI? I think it goes back to, I mentioned in the chat, strategic clarity is to make sure that the governing organization or body knows what they want to achieve specifically, and then ask the questions, how could AI enhance the performance to achieve the outcome? And the other question that needs to be asked by a governing body, and Phyllis covered this a little bit, is that, do we have a policy of AI use? Um, to Phyllis's point, the amount of data information that's coming in is overwhelming, even though you may have a small window into what you want. What are you going to do with it? How are you going to manage it? What's the governing policy around it for security, for compliance, etc.? How should an individual interact with the AI tool that's approved by the organization? Those are the largest strategic questions that a board or a board trustee needs to be asking for the organization.
Fantastic. Other thoughts? Peter, any questions that you had that you wanted to field?
Just the ones that, what are the implications of AI in impact investing in developing countries? Hopefully, I've addressed that in terms of the skills that are required of the population to deal with AI, and particularly we haven't touched on this, but literacy in English is important because most AI, whether we like it or not, is still and likely to be in the English medium. So I think that's critical in terms of the learning environment and giving people the skills for that. And also the in terms of how can AI content be humanized? You know, we've touched on the human aspect of this. The other question that I thought was interesting was using AI with public-private partnerships. And I think that's where the example I gave you of Smart Start in South Africa, of where governments are now working with the kind of private sector to achieve social objectives, provides a good example of that. And as Phyllis was saying, where you've got the data coming in and hopefully coming in at a relevant period of time after the activity, you can actually get that feedback quite quickly and see what's working. And governments obviously would like to know whether their money is being used wisely. So I think that helps public-private partnerships and helps the implementing partners. I know Education Outcomes Fund are doing some very interesting things in Ghana and other parts of Africa and India to actually using contract-based performance agreements. And I think this is a way forward for AI to play a role.
I think that, again, when we think about, there's a question on LATAM, given what's happening with the Trump administration, we will be walking around the world, around the globe, with special features on LATAM, around climate, economic opportunities for local communities, really looking holistically at Latin America, Africa, Asia, Europe, and North America. So we will not forget the world. And within that, we'll have the context of what strategies are being used as a tool for investors, whether they're pension funds, whether they're nonprofit intermediaries, whether they're ultra high net worth individuals. We walk across how to deploy those tools, which is what AI is, given the certain unique circumstances of country, continent, and community. Tennille, you've got some information you want to share. So with that, I want to thank our panelists. I hope you'll join us for Impact Investing. It'll be great fun. And we'll continue the seminar series on impact AI and technology in the future. So Tennille, over to you.
Great, thanks. So this is just a quick view of whether you want to apply or learn more on the program. So as Gayle mentioned, she runs the next Impact Investing program taking place in February 2026. We do have a few spaces left on this program. So if you'd like to find out a bit more, you can scan the QR code on the left And if you want to apply directly, you can start that application process by scanning the QR code on the right. If you'd like to have an info call or anything like that, you can reach out on my email, which is shown below. And I'd be happy to arrange a quick call to deep dive and find out if this is the right program for your needs. I've also dropped in the chat our YouTube playlist. So this webinar has been recorded, so it will be emailed to you if you've registered and attended, but it'll also be added to our YouTube playlist, which has a multitude of program director-led webinars, alumni in action series, as well as how to ace your impact finance application to help you on your journey. So I'll leave that up just for a few more seconds so that you can scan that should you have any information or take note of my email. But thank you so much again for coming out today. It was lovely to share this information with you and share with you from our amazing panelists.
You soon.
Sorry, Gayle, you were muted.
I know. I'm going to say one more time. Thank you so much. We'll see you soon. February is fast approaching, and look for the next session on this topic. So thank you very much. And with that, goodbye. Thanks.
Yeah.